Now let's just briefly move on to our Q&A session.
Respected Khenpo, hello. I am from the School of Educational Science at Nanyang Normal University. I am currently a senior majoring in education at my university. Today, I would like to ask a few questions. First, my first question is on behalf of a friend. One of my friends couldn't make it today. She asked me to help her ask a question. She is already 31 this year, but she still doesn't have a partner. She wants to build a Buddhist family. She wants to know how to repent for karmic obstacles and attract an ideal partner. Khenpo, please kindly give us your guidance. Thank you.
Each of us has different hopes and aspirations. Actually, if she wants to have her ideal family and a partner and so on, though I don't know what kind of partner she is looking for, then I think, first, she should recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra. If you recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra, and there are no particular obstacles from past lives, then if you pray for a child, you will have a child. If you pray for wealth, you will gain wealth. When you pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as long as there are no special hindrances or obstacles from past lives, your wishes can generally be fulfilled. Of course, I think that in today's world, if it is truly a Buddhist family, meaning a family that genuinely follows Buddhist teachings, in a Buddhist family, there may not be many conflicts or disagreements between husband and wife. From my experience, many Buddhists, if both the wife and husband practice Buddhism, then there aren't many conflicts or disputes. Otherwise, if the wife practices Buddhism but the husband does not, or even opposes it at times, then every day is filled with constant arguments, both heated and cold wars. It's very painful, therefore I think that whether or not you can actually achieve your goals, it depends on causes and conditions, as well as some good fortune. Praying can also help to address and resolve some problems, especially when facing difficulties.
Thank you, Khenpo. In daily life, we often see that some people do a lot of good deeds and virtuous acts, but don't receive corresponding good rewards. Yet some people do many bad things, but don't seem to suffer any retribution. So some people think that the idea that good is rewarded with good and evil with evil is just a kind of psychological comfort. So does karmic retribution really not exist? Khenpo, could you please explain?
Karmic retribution truly exists. I firmly believe this without any doubt. But as you just mentioned, why do some people who do good deeds not receive good rewards? And why do some people who do bad things not receive bad retribution? In reality, cause and effect don't work in such a way that you immediately reap what you sow. It's like a particularly poor farmer. He was very poor before because he hadn't farmed his land. But now, when he's finally farming well, in fact, he hasn't harvested yet. At this point, we might think, if this farmer is really planting crops now, why is he still so poor? If autumn hasn't arrived yet, we say it's unreasonable to judge him. Because for retribution to ripen, as explained in Buddhism, some karmic effects mature within this very life. This is called immediate retribution. Some karmic effects are experienced in future lives. This is called retribution in future lives. And some karmic effects only ripen after a very long time. This is the law of cause and effect in our world, and it follows this pattern. So regarding this question, I think many of us, it is indeed true that good deeds are rewarded with good outcomes. It's understandable for you to have such doubts. But when it comes to karma, so-called karma, it is a very complex philosophical concept. You really need to study it systematically first, before you can truly understand the real truth behind good begets good. Therefore, when we do a good deed now, it doesn't necessarily bring immediate results. Take a look at what we do now. Some people love to study, but even if you love to study, the results may not appear immediately. Not everything manifests its outcome right away. This point must have a logical connection within it.
Hello, I am from the School of Education, majoring in applied psychology. I am a third-year student. Just now I also heard you, Khenpo, mention going with the flow. Because of going with the flow, you distinguished between active and passive ways of going with the flow. I would like to know how to actively go with the flow. What should we do in this regard, in your opinion? Also, if we apply this to academics or career, how should we understand it? Thank you.
Here's how I see it. The term going with the flow. Actually, in Zen Buddhism, this is often mentioned as well. Enlightenment according to circumstances. And in the secular world, people also say this quite often. But among us, some people take going with the flow to mean not putting in any effort in anything. If you give up and just go with the flow without making any effort, you will miss out on many opportunities. So this is unreasonable. But if you have put in the effort and still didn't get accepted, or if you didn't find a particularly satisfying job, before that happens, you should make every possible effort to try. When things ultimately don't work out, if you have the concept of going with the flow in your heart, you won't feel especially distressed about it. This even applies to some relationships and pursuits in life nowadays. You may have very high hopes in your pursuit, but in the end, if things don't work out, when you don't succeed, you might feel especially heartbroken. Some people even might resort to harmful means to hurt themselves. At such times, if you have an attitude of letting things take their course, actually, letting things take their course isn't what we imagine it to be, where everything goes smoothly and all our wishes come true. In this world, the success of anything, actually, it involves especially complex causes and conditions. This point is something we basically haven't learned in our university education. If we study Buddhist texts like the Abhidharmakosha and the 100 Deeds Sutra, in the theory of cause and effect in the 100 Deeds Sutra, it is indeed the case that many things we do now are just like what this student asked earlier. Some receive their results in this very life, while others bear fruit in future lives. So, regarding my lack of success in this matter, in fact, this contains many elements from this life, as well as many elements from past lives. At that time I can let it go, and this is actually a positive attitude. You won't have a sense of rejection or abandonment regarding this matter, in this context. But for you personally, your own future will definitely be very bright.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask, if in life someone complains about something, for example, complains about life, and their thinking is very stubborn, perhaps even inflexible and very persistent, what should be done? Because it's not good, for example, complaining about life or something like that. How can we help them let go of their attachment? Thank you.
Well, I think actually, as I just mentioned a moment ago, a lot of our complaints about society nowadays, whether they are directed at ourselves or at others, this is actually not very reasonable. Why is that? Because the effect of complaining, in fact, should be turned around and used to question ourselves. With everything we do, when it doesn't succeed, we might blame others. But when it succeeds, we see it as our own glory. Many people have this bad habit and tendency, and actually it's not good at all. When you succeed, you should attribute it to the contributions of others. When you don't succeed, it's your own fault. So in Tibetan region, there is a particularly famous saying that goes, "Take the blame and losses upon yourself when you fail, and dedicate the victory and benefits to others when you succeed." This is a very important motto for life. Why is that? In our daily lives, we often work with others, and during these times, there may be some failures or some negative situations. At such times, I think to myself, I will take all the blame. All the mistakes are my own responsibility. And all that is right, all that is good, I dedicate to others. Actually, this should be very difficult to do, but it is actually very meaningful. Then you tell someone to let him put it down. Maybe sometimes what we call letting go of things doesn't necessarily mean we can truly let go, but you can only let go when you truly understand its meaning. For example, anything in life, when you're particularly attached to it, you won't be able to let go. When you truly understand its profound and significant meaning, letting go won't be too difficult.
Thanks. Hello, Khenpo. I am a senior student in the School of Educational Sciences, class of 2008. I have a question. It's about some emotional setbacks that happened in the past. It still bothers me right now. How can I get rid of it?
In fact, in our Tibetan region, generally speaking, many young people, indeed, it was because of my faith that I came to understand some of the Buddhist concept of impermanence. The reason for many problems lies in these. For example, when it comes to emotional matters, so-called being hurt or experiencing great pain, it does happen, but not often. This kind of emotional attachment mainly originates from our attachment to other people, which is generally founded upon a strong and persistent sense of possession. If our attachment to other people is built on a foundation of possession, then once someone treats us badly, or if even their small actions already show a noticeable change in attitude toward us, at that moment I might feel especially disappointed in them as well. If our so-called love or emotional attachment to others, whether it is directed toward friends, family, or acquaintances, is based on an unconditional, open-minded, or more tolerant mindset, then even when there is discord or conflict in your relationships with others, we won't feel deeply hurt, wounded, or traumatized inside. This is something many young people find hard to get through. But in reality, after another 10 or 20 years, when you look back on your life, you'll find it quite laughable. Because when it comes to matters of emotion, it's like when we were children fighting over toys. Back then, when I was fighting for a toy, I cried so hard and felt so heartbroken. But after I grew up, when I think back on how I felt at that time, it just seems so foolish and laughable. I shouldn't have cried. Whether I had that toy or not, it didn't really matter. Why was I so sad back then? In the same way as you get older, eventually, when you become more mature, or when your thinking is influenced by some religious beliefs, at that point, when you look back, you realize, oh, I was so attached to someone else and felt so heartbroken back then. It was as if I was about to fall apart. That kind of attachment is truly foolish, and at this stage, you understand that very clearly. That's why I really hope that many young people who are sometimes caught in a web of emotional confusion, they can't pull themselves out, and it's really pitiful. Some people talk about it, some don't, but regardless, every day they're immersed in this kind of suffering. But if you truly understand some of the basic principles of life, these things are really nothing. It's just a kind of attachment that comes with a certain stage of life. Once you've made it through that phase, you'll realize it's not something particularly precious, nor is it something indispensable in life.
All right, thank you, Khenpo. Khenpo, I am a senior in college. I would like to ask, what is the difference between religious faith and superstition?
Religious faith, in fact, as we know it. For example, whether you believe in Christianity, Taoism, Confucianism, or Buddhism, your beliefs may differ. Some people, perhaps in order to achieve their own personal goals. On the surface, go to temples to burn incense and worship the Buddha. This can also be considered a form of faith, but on a certain level, they don't really know what effect worshipping the Buddha in this way has. They don't understand what the actual purpose of doing this is. Why is it that they can't even distinguish between Buddhas and gods? In fact, this is a kind of superstition. Nowadays, in many temples, there are people who worship the Buddha every day. And I feel that maybe I shouldn't say this, but there is indeed a bit of superstition involved. Why is that? If you ask them why they worship the Buddha, they can't give a clear answer. So what is true faith? It is using your own wisdom and also reading the genuine writings or books of wise elders or great masters, and finally realizing, wow, Shakyamuni Buddha really did come to this world. What Shakyamuni Buddha taught truly aligns with the truths of life. His teachings play an irreplaceable role in dispelling confusion, alleviating suffering, and solving problems in life for both oneself and others. It has an indelible effect. At this moment, you truly, from the depths of your heart, have unwavering faith in him. This is what real religious faith is. But for other people in the world, on the surface they believe in him, but in reality, they are confused and do not fully understand. Whether this kind of faith comes from intellectuals or from ordinary people, in fact, it is just superstition. That's why I often say, just because you worship the Buddha doesn't mean you truly have faith, because you don't understand his merits. Burning incense doesn't necessarily mean you have genuine faith either. Some farmers, ordinary people, they worship just to have a good fishing catch. I used to visit the South, and some locals there. They worship the Buddha just for fishing, worship again and again. This is actually a kind of superstition. In fact, the faith of true intellectuals is completely different. I once read a book by Liang Qichao. In that book, Liang Qichao talked about the difference between superstition and true faith. In the end, he said that Buddhist faith should be based on wisdom, not superstition. True Buddhist faith is faith through wisdom, not superstition. But sometimes we people believe without understanding the principles behind it. In fact, it might not be true faith. That's also possible. So it's very important for us to have true faith, not superstition.
Thank you, Khenpo. I have another question. As everyone knows, monastics are not allowed to drink alcohol or eat meat. But why did Jigong, the living Buddha, say, wine and meat pass through the intestines, but the Buddha remains in the heart?
Historically, Jigong the monk is recognized as an accomplished practitioner. If an accomplished practitioner lets wine and meat pass through his intestines, the Buddha still remains in his heart. But there's another line that follows. Those in the world who imitate me walk the path of heresy. If some people want to imitate me, drinking alcohol, smoking, eating meat, then that person is already walking a heretical path. This line from Jigong, the living Buddha, is often overlooked by many people as if they haven't seen it at all. In fact, for most of us, whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Han Buddhism, when one's level of spiritual attainment is especially high, there is no difference between meat and other foods or between alcohol and other beverages. In the past, there was a great accomplished master in India. After he drank alcohol, the scent of it could emanate from his body. He had attained such a level of accomplishment. Indeed, Jigong the monk was truly extraordinary. When one reaches this kind of state, drinking alcohol or smoking pose no obstacles for him. But if ordinary monastics or practitioners in the world try to imitate him, nowadays, many people, because of past movies and media, many people who don't understand Buddhism at all drink alcohol every day. Some leaders say the same thing. When I was in Tibet, I had a friend who would say this every day and drink alcohol every day. He'd say, "It's fine, as long as the Buddha is in my heart." But in reality, the Buddha had not yet entered his heart. He drank every day, getting completely drunk, always in a daze. Actually, this kind of behavior is unreasonable. Whether monastics or lay people, no one should boast or speak big words. If you yourself have not reached the level of Master Jigong, you shouldn't casually use words that describe such a high state. It's wrong to use this to justify your bad actions.
Thank you, Khenpo, for answering our questions.
Hello, Khenpo. I have read your book before. I was very inspired by your speech. But I still have many questions in my mind. You just mentioned that psychology is a discipline that teaches people about happiness. I myself am a psychology major in our College of Education, but unfortunately I don't feel happy. For more than 20 years, I have felt that my life has been consistently unsuccessful. First of all, when I was very young, during my early childhood, my family went through some significant changes. At the time, I didn't really feel anything, but looking back now, I realize it had a big impact on me. After that, in terms of my academic journey from middle school to high school and then to university, I went through many different kinds of difficulties and challenges before finally getting into this university. Now I'm already a junior in college. When I first started, I looked forward to having a relationship. So far, I've tried to pursue relationships with 5 different girls, but not a single girl has agreed to be in a relationship with me yet. I don't know if in everyone's eyes these things can be considered hardships. But facing all this, I've never thought about suicide, nor have I ever tried it. I've always just patiently endured it all. But deep down, I've never truly been happy. I think my biggest confusion is, I don't know why I came into this world. Could it be that I came into this world just to go through these hardships? Was I born just to suffer? According to what we say in Buddhism, it's all about karma and reincarnation. The reason I am experiencing so many hardships in this life is probably because I committed a lot of wrongdoings in my past life. According to the concept of karma and reincarnation, if there are good rewards, they should come in the next life as good outcomes. But what I'm really thinking about now is how I can, in this life, right now in this life, actually receive some good rewards to eliminate the negative effects these hardships have on me. Thank you.
First of all, as you just mentioned, the field of psychology may not necessarily bring you happiness. In fact, Jungian psychology, as well as many other psychology books and textbooks, might be different from each other. What I was reminding you of just now is that, especially in Buddhism, there are some inner studies which we call inner science. Inner science mainly explores the profound principles of inner psychological health. If you take the time to study it gradually, step by step, it should help you develop and nurture a deeper, more enduring sense of happiness over time. You just mentioned that starting from your early childhood and up to the present, your life has also probably been filled with all kinds of disappointments. But I think from the way you described your experiences, not everything was necessarily disappointing. Some things may have actually gone very well for you. Perhaps you have also experienced moments when you should have been happy. It's just that you may have overlooked some of these aspects. But in fact, according to our Buddhist perspective, it is indeed just as you said. This is actually related to the merits and karma from your previous lives. This is something that everyone here should really keep in mind. Because in the future, you may indeed need to remember this in your own life. Everyone's karma from past lives is different. Sometimes the efforts you make in this life may end up being in vain. There are indeed some people who perform extremely well, but often when it comes to the actual exam, they don't succeed. Some people have very good character, but are often abandoned by many others. Some people have all kinds of social connections, but in reality, the final outcome is still unsatisfactory. All kinds of karma. This is also mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures. The web of karma is like a huge net. It is truly vast, absolutely boundless, and completely immeasurable. Therefore, if those present here truly understand the law of cause and effect, for some things, perhaps all I can do is sincerely repent. Only then can I make up for the negative karma created in my past lives. The injustices we experience in this life. There was once a great master who said, on the surface, it may seem that our lives are not going smoothly, but perhaps for you it actually becomes a favorable condition. From our current perspective, some things may seem like favorable conditions, but on the other hand, they might turn into obstacles. Why do I say this? Some people may have faced difficulties in their families and other aspects since childhood, including many disappointments in relationships and other areas. But these experiences play a significant role in strengthening and uplifting you through life's trials. Some people on the surface seem to have everything, wealth, power, and all kinds of advantages. But once they enter society, because nowadays some children of leaders and wealthy people are especially fragile, they have been treated like princes and princesses since childhood. But in the end, when they face the real world, they are often not successful at all. Therefore, we shouldn't think that what appears to be a disaster in our lives on the surface, or what seems to be a setback on the surface, should be viewed as a misfortune. Instead, you should treat it as an opportunity for growth and tempering. In this way, your life will be valuable, and in the future, it will definitely be meaningful.
Khenpo, I understand the principle you're talking about. I've read many Buddhist stories before. They all say, to sum it up, that whatever happens, you should patiently endure it, then let go and take it lightly. But my own cultivation isn't enough, so I just can't let go or see things clearly.
First of all, we should understand in theory that so-called letting go isn't that easy. It's not as simple as letting go whenever you want, or seeing through things whenever you wish. It's not necessarily like that. Only through long-term training and practice can you gradually, over time, truly let go after practicing. So right now, we're like people with cataracts in our eyes. Even though we understand the principle, the white conch appears yellow to us. But until your illness is cured, you'll keep seeing the conch as yellow. It's the same logic. Right now, we might say we understand it verbally, but in reality, we don't truly understand. If you really understood, then you wouldn't actually become attached to the object of your clinging. So what we call understanding is merely a conceptual or literal understanding. If we truly and thoroughly understood, then we would never cling to it again. So there's a definite difference between so-called understanding and true realization.
Respected Khenpo, hello. I am a senior student majoring in education. Today I feel very honored to receive your guidance, and I feel I have greatly benefited. I would like to ask, what does taking refuge mean in Buddhism, and what is its definition? Please, Khenpo, give us your teaching. Thank you.
As for what is called taking refuge, to put it simply, in Buddhism there are specific rituals, and taking refuge essentially means relying on and placing trust in it. How do we rely on it? From now on, I rely on the Buddha, rely on the Buddha's Dharma, and rely on the Buddha's Sangha. In other words, it means taking refuge in the three jewels. In fact, from now on, we follow the Buddha's teachings in our actions. This is the method of taking refuge. There is common refuge and uncommon refuge. There are also special forms of refuge in Vajrayana and many other classifications.
Compassionate Khenpo, could you perform a refuge ceremony for us here and now? Is it possible to take refuge?
As for taking refuge, I think here, some of you may want to take refuge while others may not necessarily want to. But I can recite a refuge prayer. For those who don't want to take refuge, it won't have any effect on you, so there's no need to worry. If you do wish to take refuge, I can also recite it for everyone. When we take refuge, from now on there is Mahayana refuge and Hinayana refuge, as well as many other methods. So what is the highest level of refuge? It is to take refuge in the three jewels for the sake of all sentient beings throughout the boundless world. Such faith is a supreme form of refuge. Now I will recite a refuge verse.
I am a sophomore student at the School of Journalism and Communication. I would like to ask a few questions. First, I would like to ask, what is your view on some of the fortune-telling practices in society?
Fortune-telling, actually, should be said to have a certain history here in Henan, including some Taoist rituals. Of course, in Buddhism, we also have some principles related to this. But nowadays, a lot of fortune-telling may be done just to make money and is not very legitimate. Of course, we also can't deny that all fortune-telling is fake. Actually, when they tell our fortunes, sometimes it's especially accurate in our own lives. There is also this kind of mysterious element to it. No matter what we buy, whether it's real or fake, we need to analyze it. So with fortune-telling and divination, there are many such phenomena. We can't just deny all of it as superstition or fake. Otherwise, you might miss that some people are especially accurate at fortune-telling. This has existed since ancient times. But we also can't say that all fortune-tellers are good. Some are purely out to scam people for money. There are those as well. This needs to be observed carefully and with balance. That's how I see it. I'm also interested in fortune-telling, but I stay cautious about it.
Master, do you know how to read faces?
I do, but I won't do it today.
There's another question. Before coming here, I also followed your Weibo. And usually I'm also interested in Tibetan Buddhism, which is Vajrayana. I've also done some basic research, and what I'm especially interested in is, why are so many ritual implements made from human bones? Isn't Buddhism supposed to be compassionate? Why do they have to use things like that? I'm really curious about this.
What does that have to do with my Weibo? Those human bone ritual implements. I've never used any human bone ritual implements on my Weibo. Actually, in Buddhism, not all ritual implements are made from human bones. That's not the case. In Vajrayana Buddhism, there are some special circumstances. For example, when a practitioner of chod practice reaches a certain level, they use a human bone to blow a horn. And when performing certain special Vajrayana rituals, they sometimes make hand drums or prayer beads out of human bones and so on, as part of these unique practices. There are some very specific special uses. But nowadays, it seems that many people are just curious about this kind of thing. They think that any ritual implement made from human bone is very good. So many people in business, these people have started to promote them as commercial products for sale. Actually, in Buddhism, there are some particularly mysterious and secret special implements. But these are not made public. However, in today's society, they deliberately use them as a marketing tool. So many Han Chinese also start to acquire things like these out of curiosity, such as kapalas, skull caps, and the like. But in fact, this doesn't mean that Buddhism is not compassionate, because all of these are made from the bones of people who have already died. It's not as if people are killed on purpose to obtain their bones. So this really has nothing to do with compassion. All of these, none are made from the bones of living people taken and used. There are none like that. So this really has nothing to do with compassion.
Why did Buddhism decline in its Indian birthplace while Hinduism flourished?
I just mentioned impermanence. Take Luoyang, for example. Even though it's the birthplace of Chinese Buddhism, Buddhism here isn't particularly flourishing. Even many university students don't understand Buddhism. So this is a matter of causes and conditions. As time passes, things change and transform. Actually, in India today, Buddhism is not exactly unpopular either. At Bodh Gaya and the 4 great Buddhist holy sites in India, devotees from all over the world hold Dharma assemblies there. This includes Buddhist traditions other than Hinduism that are present in India today. Speaking of Buddhism in India, I visited India around 1990, and at that time, I would say Buddhism in India was not as underdeveloped as people say. It was actually quite flourishing, especially Tibetan Buddhism, which is very prosperous in India.
Thank you for your patient answers.
Hello, Master. I am a student from the Fine Arts Department, now in my senior year. I'm also a member of our Nanyang Buddhist study group. Before I could only see you on the computer screen, but now seeing you in person, I feel especially excited. I would like to ask you, since I'm about to graduate this year, we're facing a lot of pressure regarding employment and such. I'm wondering at this stage, should I devote all my energy to studying and acquiring knowledge, or should I set aside some of my energy to make sure I participate in the weekly group practice? Which of these will be more meaningful for my future life? Thank you, Master.
This really depends on your situation. On one hand, you can't neglect your studies, because for you, as senior university students, this is, you could say, a turning point in your life. After working so hard and studying for so many years, now is the time to give back to society and integrate into it. So I think your own field of study should not be neglected or become less active just because you are practicing Buddhism or because you are focusing solely on Buddhist study. That is not reasonable. I often tell this to some of the volunteers as well. Don't let it affect your work. At this time, it might happen that we may not be able to fully meet some of the Buddhist study requirements, but you should still strive and make progress as long as it doesn't interfere with your studies. In the future, when you have a more satisfactory environment in all aspects, you can make up for it again at that time.
Thank you very much, Master.
I am a sophomore at the School of Economics and Management. I have a few questions. In our real society, the things we desire are all based on cause and effect, and all arise from desire. We develop vanity and a tendency to compare ourselves with others. We often forget who we are and what we truly need. In other words, how can we seek our true selves, reflect on ourselves, and look inward to our spiritual core?
Nowadays, vanity is especially strong and there's inflation. No matter whether it's among students or adults, the tendency to compare with others is particularly intense in such a society. It's crucial for our hearts to be calm and for us to feel happiness within. This is an especially important matter. If we don't have this kind of firm understanding, then in this society, we may never truly be happy. If you have one car, you'll want to buy a second one. If you have one house, you might want to buy two houses. Even if you own several houses, you're still not satisfied. You'll start thinking about buying property abroad. In this way, your desires become endless. In the past, some leaders said they wanted to meet people's needs for a better life. But in reality, those needs can never truly be satisfied. Our hearts are like a bottomless pit that can never be filled. It's very difficult to fill it with material things. We should cultivate a sense of contentment and possess the wisdom of self-awareness. This kind of wisdom can be found everywhere in Buddhism. Today, in such a short amount of time, it's impossible to explain everything to you clearly in just a few words. But I especially hope that many of the scholars and talented individuals present here today will very soon embark on a truly wonderful and exciting new chapter in life, filled with opportunities and experiences. At this moment, not only should we enrich our own lives, at the same time, we must not forget inner peace. True inner peace can only be found in the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. There we find the most perfect and ultimate answers. Today, there may still be many students with a lot of questions. From the expressions I saw earlier, some people have more than just 2 questions. Many questions have already been written in your hearts. However, due to time constraints, I'm afraid I can't answer them all one by one. If we ourselves are interested in this area, nowadays the internet and many forms of communication are extremely fast. We should use various channels to help everyone better understand the profound teachings of Buddhism. Personally, I don't have much valuable or constructive wisdom to offer you all. But after all, I have read some of the Buddha's wisdom. The Buddha's sutras and teachings, in my experience, have benefited many people I've encountered, including university students and professors. They have all gained certain benefits. I hope that in the future, we can all continue to learn together more and more.